All right, everyone. Good morning. It's Tuesday. We've reached, and we're back. I am Hamish. We've got Tony and Kevin on as it's a Tuesday. I'd ask how you are, guys. I know the answer. If you're anything like me, you've had a pretty enjoyable 48 hours or so.
Happy days. Yeah.
It's always good to win the cup, isn't it? And to win it in that fashions. As I say, I like my rhyme and slang. It's no good for the Gary Dicker, but hey, you'll take it, won't you? You know what I mean? So there you go. Yeah, but hey, let's do it. It's good fun.
Yeah, everything's good. And if you think we're going to possibly move on today and talk about something other than beating Rangers to claim our 119th trophy in the first part of a potential treble, you're very wrong, because we're going to be chatting about that again. I hope you don't mind that. I'm sure you won't. Kevin, how's things?
Yeah, I was very nervous during that cup final. But I was saying to Tony before we came on that I'd been at Hampden for the 2021 for Christopher Julian scored.
Yep.
And we were so well. You hesitate to say we were so bad, but Rangers battered us that day. We didn't have any strikers. There was all sorts of problems. And so long before the end, I'd sort of kind of given up. I just thought it's not our day. But then, of course, we score against the run of play, and then it gets nervous. And then Frimpong gets sent off, and you're thinking, God, if they score, this goes to extra time, they'll probably win because it's a sodden Hampden. It's 120 minutes with 10 men. But I was nervous during this final for different reasons because I don't think we played well. I know that Rangers, an awful lot has been made about the way Rangers set up and how it nullified the ability or what we've been doing in passing from out of defence into the midfield, turning, drawing the opposition in, and then releasing the flanks. And it was good. It was decent tactical awareness, but we're not talking rocket science here. We've still got better players than Rangers, and it was only, I think, after it became clear in the first 10 minutes of the second half that we had sort of we know what they're about. And the passing got a bit crisper and we were moving it a little bit quicker. But still, there were too many passes going astray. But you know what? If Rangers, everyone's saying that Rangers played absolutely magnificently. It was their best performance of the season. Well, it was 3-3. So we must have played magnificently as well. And the third goal was a thing of beauty. Again, I had to chuckle at, I think it was Neil McCann and BBC the other night, talking about how Celtic's first two goals were a bit lucky, or it might not have been Neil McCann, it might have been the presenter, that it didn't come from their normal kind of smooth going through the gears passages of play. That it was, the first one was a deflection, the second one came from almost a mishit, or a hit and hope overhead kick by McGregor. But so were Rangers. Rangers' first goal was gifted to them by us when, quite frankly, although we didn't play well in the first half, they didn't create very much. And of course, the second goal was a deflection. So look, it's an old firm. It's a Glasgow Derby Cup final win. It's our fourth Cup final win over Rangers. We've never had a run like that. We've never won 4 cup finals in a row against them. To my recollection, they've done it once to us, and I think in the late 90s, going through to the League Cup final of 2003 for John Hartson was very, very wrongly judged to be offside and what would have been an equalising goal. So, mixed emotions, but hey, first trophy of the season, 119. First time we've been ahead of Rangers in trophies since 1934, I think.
I think the point you make about not playing well in the game is fine. And you brought up the 2019 final, the Christopher Julian one, and we didn't play well that day. But finals are just about winning, guys, aren't they? Like that is, and I know that's a thing people say, but it's so true. You don't look back at that 2019 game and think any less of it because we didn't play well. If anything, you think more of it because we were poor that day, dominated, and still found a way to win. Tony,
I wrote this morning, you're going to look back in this final, and it'll be called the Dyson Maeda Cup final. One for the goal, which was the sublime bit of skill in the whole game, right? He's charged down Raskin's header and then pulled that ball out of the sky, cushioned it and scored. And then, by his own words, he scuffed a penalty. Tell you what, if that's how you scuff penalties, textbook scuff. You know what I mean? But that's the way you're going to look at it. You're not even going to look at the fact that, because see everybody telling you it was a classic final. It wasn't. There was 6 goals. It was entertaining, right? For the neutral, but there wasn't a bit of football played in the whole game. 2 bits of football. Maeda's goal and Czerny's cross into the box for Danilo, which Maeda himself admitted he should probably have shut down and was annoyed at that. But that's what you'll look by. You know, the manager said that it's about being on the podium. Doesn't matter how you get there. Nobody cares. History books will show Celtic won their 119th trophy, and for those who are into their stats, it's all of a sudden become a very significant number, hasn't it? In terms of your Celtic history and history of your rivals, so you can look into that whatever way you want. But cup finals are for winners, and winners win, and you find a way. And this narrative, and there's lots of narratives, creeping about. It's like the narrative that Aberdeen were magnificent in the 2-each game early in the season against Celtic. They were good for 10 minutes. Yeah. Celtic through the kitchen. And then now there's this narrative that Rangers were fantastic. That's the best Rangers can play with that group of players. And they still couldn't beat a Rodgers team who were below par. And in extra time, Celtic were trying to win the football match. There was one team clinging on and hanging on, trying to take it to penalties and take luck in penalties. And as I say, well, Kevin said Kuhn's goal. Kuhn's goal was maybe a well-worked goal, a bit of football that was played.
Great goal.
So let's not get all the kind of noise that's coming about various things confused here. The bits of football that were played were by Celtic. I'll give Czerny his due for that cross because it's bang on the money. It is one of those crosses that are very difficult to deal with, though. Don't know, me personally.
Lazy from Dyson Maeda, wasn't it? Should have stopped the cross. What's he like, that guy?
On the other hand, I mean, I know that you were saying that Dyson should have cut that out, but Czerny, look, you've got to give him his due. Czerny's a good player. He was the best player. He has been for several weeks. He's very skillful.
It's Dyson that's saying he should have cut it out. I was just like,
I mean,
a brilliant bit of skill
from
Czerny.
Or possibly, they could have cut it out. But it was, he basically beat him hands down and then delivered an inch perfect cross. But yeah, there are a couple of kind of, I know, we won the first cup of the season. I take your point. There's only one thing that matters on Cup Final Day, which is being in the winners' podium. But there are still one or two concerns. The next time we play Rangers is at Ibrox in 2 or 3 weeks' time, and they will think that they have that they have worked out the formula. It's up to us, given that Brendan Rodgers is a sophisticated tactician and knows games and knows systems probably better than any other manager in Scotland and one of the best in the UK. You have to hope that between now and then, if you assume that Rangers will set up similarly, that we'll be working on ways to spring that. And there's a precedent for this from 3 seasons ago. I think we beat Rangers 4-0 at Parkhead It was 4-0 going in 7. And then the next time we played them at Parkhead, it was 3-2. And a lot of stuff, there was a lot of noise before the game about how they were going to have to look after Callum McGregor, and they were saying they had plans to do that. And yeah, for 20-25 minutes, they pressed far up the park. They crowded McGregor, to stop him collecting the ball from deep, turning and spreading the play. And it only worked for 20-25 minutes because, quite frankly, they weren't fit enough, to maintain that intensity of pressing. And it, after half an hour or so, it became clear that this, they were retreating deeper and deeper because they just, Celtic were playing at speed and at a tempo, and the space began to open up again. This is the same narrative, that Rangers and other clubs will now know that, you just need to press Celtic, compress the midfield, make that a very congested area. But we had an answer to it 3 or 4 years ago. Aye. And I trust Brendan Rodgers to find the answer, for the next time we play Rangers and against Aberdeen. It's not just about Rangers, because we have the better players, but we also have to cut out some glaring mistakes that are happening when there's kind of mild pressure. I mean, it wasn't about Rangers not getting that penalty. It was the fact that when they did have that big chance, they blew it, but that came from a bad error. So did the penalty incident. So did the first goal. I know that Brendan Rodgers isn't the sort of person to talk about individual errors in public, but you have to hope that some serious words are happening, because that was three potentially match-losing errors in one game. It is not good.
There's no doubt. I mean, we need to tighten up our play a bit. I think since the Leipzig game, we haven't hit that level. There's been occasional games. I mean, the Ross County one, when we made those changes, was an excellent first half. So we can't rewrite history and say, the team's been dull. We're also going through this kind of difficult December period, and for me, that's always difficult. I think you look back at cup finals in recent years, and very rarely actually play that well. If you think even back to like the Invincible final, we were poor that day, and remember the Ryan Christie final against Aberdeen in the League Cup were awful that day, and even some of the ones against Rangers recently haven't been brilliant performances. Here's a question for you. When was the last time Celtic lost a final?
League Cup or Scottish Cup?
Any competition.
I think it was Kilmarnock, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah,
February 2012 was the last time Celtic lost a final. 15 finals in a row we've won. It's a ridiculous record.
It is ridiculous. Yep. Listen, and that's the thing, and of those 15 finals, you don't remember how they played. You just know they've won.
I don't think we played that well in many of them. I mean, when we beat Aberdeen 3-0, remember, for a 100th trophy, that was a good performance.
Yeah.
And so, I think if you don't think that Brendan Rodgers isn't addressing what he'll do on the 2nd of January at this minute in time, then you just don't know what he's like. Because that's what I talk about when he's an elite level manager. He will have been annoyed at that performance. And again, he'll have been annoyed at the fact that at Hampden, they've let a kind of bread and butter cross go in the net at a crucial time, having gone 3-2 up in 86 minutes or 87, and by the 88th minute, they're 3 each. That late goals. It happened against Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup semi last year, and it's going to happen again. So I think these are things that Brendan will be talking about with his players. I mean, he's very ruthless. Look what he did with Trusty on Sunday. He could have come out and fudged that and said that was he was carrying a knock, just couch it in a knock. No, he just came out and said it was tactical. So basically saying Trusty wasn't doing what I wanted him to do.
What a boost to Liam Scales and Liam Scales'
Correct.
confidence.
Yeah.
There's your third choice centre back, and you're putting him into a huge game, as big as they come at half time.
And then bigging him up and saying, and
Yeah.
I thought he was great. Right? Now you can argue the toss whether Liam Scales was great or not. That's purely up to yourself what you were watching. But Trusty was the guy who was getting all the flowers, as Ryan would say, and the plaudits, and hooked at half time in the first major final because the manager thought, no, this isn't good. And to you and I looking on, if you were going to hook a defender, you would have hooked Greg Taylor.
Yeah.
I
thought Trusty was all right, so I thought it was an interesting
one. I didn't think.
I didn't see anything clear and obviously bad about his performance.
Again, that's why Brendan Rodgers is an expert.
Yes, that's what I mean. So he's letting you know, and he's educating you, saying you might think this guy was doing okay. I didn't, and I'm the man, in charge. Yeah. And he, and when he came out, when he didn't come out for the second half, and Liam Scales appeared, everybody was like, "Oh, he must be injured." But stared the camera down and went tactical, and left it kind of hanging like that, tactical, as if, all right. So you know yourself, Trusty clearly wasn't doing what he wanted, or he saw something that he didn't like with Trusty, and no messing, no.
Yeah.
And subsequently, Rangers have the 4-1 from Greg Taylor, and they should have won the game in that moment, because I don't think Celtic would have come back from 2 down. Have to say, but not because they were playing well, but again, another individual error. And then Greg Taylor is the one that you don't shoot, you don't score. And he gets Celtic back in the game. So it was just weird the way it all kind of panned out. But yeah, I think Brendan Rodgers will certainly be working defensively with the guys and saying, look, as you said there, Hamish, they have to tighten up, and they have to tighten up in games where you're trying to see it out. Because that's twice where they've failed to see it out, against Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup semi last season, and again on Sunday. It's not worrying per se, because they still managed to prevail in the end, but I guess you would say it's a concern and something that which will be spoken about, and it will be getting spoken about as we speak, and will be getting addressed before they head to Ibrox on January the 2nd.
I think it's interesting, as I was saying, it's weird talking about this after we've won a cup and are doing so well, but it shows the high standards that the club have set so far, that you maybe are looking at some of the recent performances, Zagreb, Bruges, the cup final, and Pittodrie as well, maybe just saying, we're not quite at the level we were. And I think you're right, guys. I think Brendan Rodgers will be on top of this. I just wonder if, and there's no winter break this year either. So it's not like, remember last year, it was a case of let's get to the winter break and recharge. You've not got a winter break this time. I wonder if that's part of why he's given the players a couple of days off yesterday, today. I know it's hardly a long break, a couple of days, but they'll hopefully come back on Wednesday. First trophy in the bag. Don't need to worry about the Champions League right now. You just have a run of league games coming up. And maybe just a slight reset. And I just wonder in the team as well if we might see a wee change here and there. Remember in the Invincible season after the international break when he brought in Dedrick Boyata from nowhere, and it made a huge difference. It just kind of gave everyone a bit of a boost. I wonder if there's like a player there, maybe someone like Luke McCowan, for example, who we have seen a bit of, but he might just start Luke McCowan at Tannadice on Sunday just to kind of freshen things up a little bit. But it's a great place we're in, Kevin. I mean, we're being quite picky, aren't we? Because we're in a great place. But I guess that's just, as I say, it's the high standards the club have set.
Look, if you told me a couple of years ago that we'd be looking back on a 0-0 draw in Zagreb against the champions of Croatia, where we had more than 60% of the play, and we were in a position where we're looking back in that with a slight sense of disappointment, I'd have thought you were mad, and even that draw with Bruges at home, probably one of the best teams that have come out of Belgium in a long time. That's what I'm being told. And, we had a very good second half, and we finished the game being the team that looked more likely to score. So, come on. And I'm saying this as much to myself because, I get carried away the emotions of it. But I remember, right, one little bit of kind of retro history here. So 1972, Celtic were one penalty kick away from getting to the European Cup final when we drew 2 games with Inter Milan, dominated both ties in the European Cup semi-final, lost in penalties. 5 months later, we turned up at a League Cup final against Hibs and were beaten 2-1 quite well. We were scudded by Hibs. That was the last great Hibs side with the likes of Cropley and Pat Stanton. We went a run of League Cup finals in the early 70s, and this is in the middle of the 9 in a row period when, the Lisbon Lions then transitioned to a team that included Kenny Dalglish. And we lost 1-0 after a dreadful performance against Rangers. That was followed the following year by a 4-1 defeat by Partick Thistle, then the 2-1 defeat by Hibs, then a 1-0 defeat by Dundee. 4 League Cup finals, 4 defeats, with probably the best team that Celtic have ever had. So, it reinforces your point at the top of the show, Tony. Look, perspective, cup finals, it's all about winning. And it's lovely to have a fantastic performance, but it usually doesn't happen. And the same can be said for Champions League finals. If you look at some of the Champions League finals at the top level with the best players in the world, I mean, can you honestly say that Real Madrid were any good? Were better than Liverpool when they beat them 1-0 a couple of years ago in Paris? No, Liverpool played them off the park.
Yeah.
But one bit of genius, one cross, one kind of slight switch off. It's 1-0 and the Real Madrid keeper plays a blinder. Real Madrid did not play well, but they won another European Cup final. They didn't play well against Atletico Madrid when they were a second away from losing to their great rivals until there was, just an old Scottish corner and header by the centre half. So, yeah. And I'm addressing myself here, and I'm telling myself, I'm actually telling myself to behave myself.
I just think, this team's capable of producing better. And but 3 or 4 weeks ago, the mood music heading into this was that Celtic were going to win this by a handsome margin. I never ever thought that. It's a cup final. Anything can happen. It's a one-off match. I knew Rangers would turn up and play the way they did. So I was never ever in that mindset. And I always felt that Celtic at Hampden, because traditionally they just, there's very few finals where teams actually turn it on and it goes to plan. So, but I'm confident this team will get better. And as you say, Mish, I think a lot has to do with this glut of fixtures. It's a grueling, punishing schedule. The manager referred to it as an ultramarathon for a reason. And I think this is where, and you'll maybe go to Ibrox and the likes of, you might see the likes of Luke McCowan start. That kind of thing.
I agree.
Energy and stuff like that. And, a guy who's busting the start and who so far has impressed in everything that he's did. So, you're going to have to use all these players and you're going to have to go to Ibrox and do something a bit different. Because as you say, Kevin, there is this kind of narrative sprouting up now that Rangers have Celtic sussed. Is that right? Fine. We'll see in January 2nd. And do you put it past the manager to do something, another tactical masterclass, or do something a bit different, or the team regroup, because that 2 days rest you talk about, Hamish, it ain't a lot, but it means the world to the players. They need that. They need their downtime. They need the rest, the recovery time, or to go and celebrate and let their hair down after winning the first trophy of the season, and then get their minds focused and switch back on and in it. And that's what the manager will say. Enjoy your 2 days. You come back, you're bang at it. We've got Tannadice on Sunday. You know what I mean? Because I'm thinking about Tannadice on Sunday. I'm thinking about Motherwell on Boxing Day. And I'm certainly thinking about Rangers on the 2nd of January. And you just, enjoy it, because these are meant to be enjoyed as well. But when you come back, it's business as usual.
Yeah. And I mean, just on the point about Rangers, and that might well be the narrative. I've not really been looking at anything their fans are saying. But from what I hear, they're kind of putting on a bit of a brave face. Clearly, they are blaming the officials for the weekend, and the club have written to the SFA. Their new CEO, Patrick Stewart, who only started yesterday, has already written to the SFA about that Scales and Cherney incident. So that's clearly the road they're going down. But I've just heard this so many times, Rangers are closing the gap. For me, there's two types of derbies at the moment. There's the derbies where we don't turn up and they do, and we still win. And there's the ones where we turn up and we beat them 3-0, 4-0. And I think Ibrox will probably be a pretty tight game, but you back Celtic to get some sort of a result. Did you see Cameron Carter-Vickers and his teammates at the darts last night?
Good to see.
So we had, who do we have? We had Greg Taylor and Stephen Welsh and Annie Engels, Adam Ida, Liam Scales, Cameron Carter-Vickers. CCV had a big, the wee mini whiteboard with 119 written on it. He enjoys a wind-up, Carter-Vickers. Remember him at the end of last season.
It's good to see. It's good to see. There's obviously a good team spirit. It's a good event to be seen at as well. And, they're not getting like hospitality. They're not in the dead expensive seats. They're just in there like the other darts punters. I like that. Look, Rangers played pretty well on Sunday. They've got good players. They're better than they were, and we need a bit of competition. But I was in conversation with a Rangers fan last night, and I was pointing out that on the Herald website there were 5, maybe 6 stories surrounding the penalty call, and pointing out Rangers are making a big fuss about this. And it's just not the actions of a club that fancies itself as big and major. Because if Celtic were to go into that sort of meltdown following some of the quite crucial decisions which have gone against us, or even Aberdeen in the last minute of the League Cup final against Rangers last season, there's no newspaper or website big enough to contain all the words that would have sprung from that. And I was at the League Cup final in 2003. Rangers go into a 2-goal lead. We battered them in the second half. Henrik Larsson scores, then John Hartson has a goal chopped off, and he wasn't just a couple of feet onside; he was like a yard or two onside. The momentum then would have been with Celtic, and you wouldn't have bet against them winning the cup. It was a clear and obvious match-defining error, but we just got on with it because it's just not classy just to keep banging on. I mean, as fans, yeah, of course we're going to bang on about it. The very fact that I can still remember where I was and how far onside John Hartson was 21 years ago. But the club itself, no, it's not. It's just that I just find it a little bit surprising.
Long may it continue, because I think it's the thing that stops them from progressing as a club. It really is. They focus on the wrong issues all the time.
I agree, yeah.
And they seem to want to lash out and blame others rather than saying, okay, focus on positive. It was a decent enough performance, close, but not there yet. Regroup and just say, okay. And I'm baffled by that all the time, and there comes a point where you expect it now, don't you? Just say, right, what's it going to be this time? And as long as they're finding excuses and scapegoats, then great, because you're playing into Celtic's hands. You won't progress as a club because you're focusing on all the wrong things. You need to focus on stuff on the park, not off it. And there's that saying, that's football. Celtic supporters know that more than most in terms of, and you've highlighted a couple of refereeing decisions, but and they are hard to take as a supporter. But you say to yourself, right, well, fine. And the beauty of football is the next game arrives, but there's a next game against your rivals, as you say, in less than a couple of weeks, and you'll still be talking about this in the lead up to the game at Ibrox. Great, because I tell you what Celtic will be doing, they'll be focusing on how to win this football match and coming up with a strategy and a plan to go to Ibrox and get another result. And then there'll be some other excuse or person to blame for how they maybe didn't win or if Celtic get a result. So I'm happy for Rangers to do that. And I'm happy for Celtic to just sort of concentrate on winning football matches and addressing where they could be better. That's fine by me.
It all comes from their manager. Sunday was his 6th derby, and I was looking back. He's genuinely complained about the officials in 4 of the 6 derbies so far. Going back to the original one at Celtic Park this time last year, he was unhappy about that Alistair Johnson handball, you might remember. The 3-3 game at Ibrox, he was unhappy about a penalty that Rangers got given against him. The cup final, he was really unhappy about a disallowed goal Rangers had. And Sunday there, like it's just part of like the derby narrative now that after the game you're going to hear that guy interviewed and he's going to be moaning about the officials.
His parting shot to the journalists on Sunday was to do digging as to why that wasn't a penalty. It wasn't a penalty because the referee didn't give it. There's no digging need to be done. They'll tell you why. It'll come out. Willie Collin will explain it. And it's probably because the whistle was blown for a free kick prior to the pool going in the bottom. And Bobby Madden and all these people thrown in their own, Keith Hackett and whoever you want to say, Des Roach, great. The match is played, it's finished. It's not getting replayed. It's a controversial incident. Football for time and perpetual motion has been full of them. And why after every Celtic Rangers defeat are we focusing on referees now? Because whenever Celtic mentioned it, we were told to button it and shut up, take our medicine and take our dumps. And that's football. What goes around comes around, as they say. That is what it happens. They go for you, they go against you. But whenever Celtic mentioned the officials, we were accused of the P word, paranoia. As the paranoia pendulum swung to the south side of the city, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I can't answer that question. Only Rangers fans and those. But my goodness, you're like, come on.
I mean, I had to chuckle hearing Bobby Madden throwing his toys out the pram. I've still got questions to ask Bobby Madden of the clear penalty that he denied Lee Griffiths in 2017 in the 1-1 game at Parkhead against Rangers. No clear explanation was given for that, but also, more crucially, Celtic didn't make a thing about it.
Or the fact that he let John Lundstrom kick with impunity in his very last game.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
The Scottish Cup semi-final, which Rangers won in extra time. Was it?
Yeah.
Time, aye.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So, listen, it gets tiresome, doesn't it? The Celtic are on an unprecedented run of dominance in this fixture, and I get that, but it's usually because we're the better team with better players, and we find a way to win, and we've got a better manager at this moment in time. I think that's the reasons mainly. You should, and if you're Rangers, you should be looking a bit more introspective about these things.
I agree totally. David just wondering why there's no winter break. That's to do with the new European system, the fact we've now got European games in January, so I think they just don't have really time to schedule a break. Apologies I didn't get through more of your comments today. There was obviously loads happening. There are a few talking points there. I know there's a comment from yesterday as well I said I'd bring up, and I've not done that yet, so I've got them saved, so I'll lead you on for another day, everyone. We can chat about. There's a comment there about Callum McGregor's game time, one about Kyogo, so we can tackle them tomorrow, as well as one about Hatate as well. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time once again. I'll catch up with you both very soon. Thanks, everyone, for watching this. We're just going to continue chatting about Celtic beating Rangers this week. I think that's the plan. And we gradually move towards Sunday's game at Tannadice, which is always fun. Okay, good stuff. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you've enjoyed this video. It would be much appreciated, and we'll catch up with you this time tomorrow.